from that moment forward, I realised that I wanted to do tuition as a job. It was kind of a realisation that, yeah, this is what I'd like to do for the rest of my life.
Hello, my name's Jenna. I'm an online primary tutor, and today I'm talking to Annabel about how to become a tutor in the UK. If you are a tutor watching this video, let us know in the comments down below. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you very much for joining me today, Annabel.
Hiya.
Right, you took a little bit of a different path to becoming a tutor to most other professionals I've spoken to. And so I was really interested when you got in touch and I thought, oh, I'll see what path you've taken, because most people I've spoken to have been ex-teachers and you are not an ex-teacher, but you've done very, very well for yourself. So let's go back in time and look at your history degree and how did that come about and what was that like, positives and negatives?
Okay, so my history degree, I decided to leave school after sixth form, and I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. First of all, I knew I wanted to do something with children. I've always enjoyed working with young people. When I was in sixth form, I set up my first business, which
Oh,
was a children's entertaining business, doing balloon modelling, face painting, magic shows, all of that kind of stuff.
okay.
And that was really, it was quite successful. I really enjoyed doing it at weekends. But obviously, once I'd left school, it was a case of I either needed to get a job or do more qualifications. I thought about doing a PGCE to become a qualified teacher. But when I went to the university to find out more about the course, it didn't really appeal to me because I wanted to do something that was probably a bit more academic at that stage, in terms of sort of learning a particular subject rather than something vocational. So I chose history because I wanted something that was academic and also something where I could learn a subject. And I've always enjoyed history. So I did the Open University history degree, thoroughly enjoyed it. The best parts for me were the fact that I learned a lot of new information. I would say to anybody who asks, how it affects the tuition, I would say, because it allowed me to develop my vocabulary.
Ah,
And I think that's something for me that is our number one concern when we're teaching is vocabulary,
mhm.
developing a child's vocabulary, making sure that they are using words that stretch them, that probably push them out their comfort zones a little bit and develop them as people. Hardest part for me was, yeah, the focusing. And I thought everyone has got a problem with focusing. When you have to read long books, long texts, yeah, no, everybody's got this. And I'm sort of sitting there, really engaged by the subject matter, but struggling because there's no pictures in the books. Thinking,
Ah,
have I still got the mind of an 8-year-old? Kind of what's going on
okay.
here? Why am I struggling with this? So for me, that was the hardest part. Nothing came to a head though until a bit later on. But yeah, for me, I wanted to do an academic subject. I've always been relatively academically minded. So I thought something like history, and I did thoroughly enjoy it. And I did come out with a degree, and I came out with something that I can be proud of. So yeah,
Fabulous.
really enjoyed that.
And was it a general history degree or was it a particular
General.
focus?
It was general. It was a
Oh,
general history
oh,
degree.
that's fun then, that you
Yeah,
can have lots of different avenues to go down to and lots of knowledge to
definitely.
explore. Lovely.
Yeah.
So then after finishing your degree, you started your tutoring business straight away. But
I
where
did.
did this idea come from?
Okay, so I always remember, it's almost like a flashbulb memory actually. I was sitting in my office at my parents' house, and I sat there and I thought, I need to do something fun with my life, something I'm going to enjoy. So I thought, I'm going to become a private tutor. Why not?
Yeah.
I don't know where the idea came from. I just sort of sat there. And because I'm so impulsive, I immediately set up a business. I'd done it before with the children's entertaining. I got a website. We're talking in one afternoon, this all happened. Website, business name, just started to plunge myself into this pool of business. And it was just this whole passion for I'm going to do something and I'm going to succeed in this. And I was really lucky because I got the keyword Bedford Tutor, which is the reason I chose it is because obviously when you're Googling, Bedford Tutor is what people tend to put in, or Bedfordshire Tutor. So I don't know why. I just had this idea I've always wanted to help children, and I've always wanted to teach children, but I never wanted to teach in a school. I always wanted to do it in a different way, provide something that the education system couldn't provide, something a little bit different. And that's what the whole aim of the business was from the onset, to create something a little bit different.
Does that link back to your own experience of school, that you wanted something totally different to that, do you think?
Kind of, I'd say half yes, half no. I loved school. I wouldn't say I ever struggled with school. I didn't find the learning side of school difficult. I was always happy to learn. I did, however, have a lot of emotional problems in school. I missed quite a lot of year 6 and also year 9 through anxiety,
Okay.
linked to a phobia of vomiting that I later found out was called a metaphobia.
Okay.
So that, obviously now I know where that emanates from, but I think I did struggle with the social side of school, and I think that's why I've always wanted to be a one-to-one tutor. I did run some small group sessions that I'll tell you about later, but I've always wanted to work one-to-one with children to give them a confidence boost, to make them feel. I never felt like I fitted in school. I always felt like the round peg in the square hole. I always found that I was different from other people, and I didn't know why I was different. And I think I questioned my own personality quite frequently in school. And I think that's something that definitely comes through in the teaching, that we want children to feel that they are unique and they have a right to be unique, and it's good of them that they're unique, and that it's something that they should be proud of at all times, that they are a unique, wonderful individual.
Well, when you started your tutoring business, you did something that was very different to every other tutor I've spoken to. You actually started it with your mum. How did that come about?
Okay, so my first client was a young girl, and from that moment forward, I realised that I wanted to do tuition as a job. It was kind of a realisation that, yeah, this is what I'd like to do for the rest of my life. So I joined First Tutors, and I got a few clients through there. And over the first year, it became clear that the business was expanding more rapidly than I expected. And my mum, who's always been interested in childcare, she worked in a nursery and then she was also a governor. She realised that she would quite like to have a bigger part in the business. And she's, like I said, she's always had an interest in working with young children. Whereas my specialism was definitely at this stage more sort of 7+. So we started to get interest from children who'd just started reception and who were in year 1. And my mum started teaching them. And it just became a really positive change in the business, because I could take on more clients and my mum was thoroughly enjoying it. And it allowed me to develop the business to cater for sort of from 5-year-olds right the way up to 16-year-olds. And even though we did also do some slightly younger children back then, sort of 3- and 4-year-olds, we don't do this anymore, because we've realised that the most success we get comes from when children have started school and know the actual structure of tuition, understand the sort of classroom setting. So we do now work with 5-year-olds right the way up to 16-year-olds. My mum specialises in the younger age groups. And I specialise probably more in the 7+, but I do still enjoy teaching the younger children. I like working with all age groups, and I think, hate to use the cliche, but variety is the spice of life is definitely something we would say about different age groups. I wouldn't enjoy just working with one age group. I do enjoy that variety of different ages and the fun that you can have with all those different children.
Lovely. And you mentioned to me outside of this interview that you love reading. So were there any, because really as a tutor, you don't really need any particular qualifications. It's an unregulated industry. But many tutors, they're either ex-teachers who have done the teaching qualification, or other tutors I've spoken to have taken their own taken it upon themselves to do their own training, their own types of qualifications. Have you done anything over the years to help develop you as a tutor?
Definitely. I mean, I do lots of little courses, CPD courses, continuous professional development, I think it stands for, courses. I do a lot of them in neurodivergence, such as autism, dyslexia, ADHD. I like to be up on the current research and practices in those. Mum and I always, every summer, we do a child protection course to ensure we understand all the rules and regulations with that. Additionally, I do lots of courses in things like developing maths, developing phonics, and I also do courses in subjects that interest me, like ecology, history, science, technology, just because there's lots of children who come to us who like their lessons themed. So if a child has a particular interest in, say, nature, I then, if I do a course on that, I've got that bit more knowledge and can then hopefully teach it in a bit more detail and with even more confidence. So I am constantly learning, and my philosophy is that if I don't learn as much as a child does in a lesson, then I'm not teaching properly, because I believe teaching is a form of learning, and you cannot teach without learning. You have to take something away from every lesson. And I think you learn as much as the child does every session. It might not be learning specific facts or information, but you learn about what that child needs. You learn about what that type of personality needs when you're teaching them. You learn how to deal with quieter people. You learn how to deal with children who need more stimulation. You learn constantly. You learn new games. You come up with new ideas. And I do believe in the lifelong learner. I never want to stop learning. Learning is what fuels me, and teaching is a way of learning. They go hand in hand.
That's brilliant. So you've kind of mentioned how your business was in the beginning. You started off, it was just you, and then your mum came and started working with you. How did it then progress over time? Were you initially just face to face in the beginning?
Yes. Yeah.
And are you still, did you still do that?
So we had that lovely thing called 2020.
Oh,
Before then,
fabulous.
I had delved into online teaching. It was a natural progression. I had some inquiries come from abroad through First Tutors, from countries as far and wide as Dubai, Saudi Arabia, Switzerland. And obviously, I can't travel to Saudi Arabia for a lesson. So it was a case of getting into Skype at this stage. I started teaching on Skype and found out, yeah, this is actually quite successful. It's quite fun. So did a few lessons here and there online. Before 2020, it was about 80% face-to-face. So 2020 hit us kind of like a cannonball, and it was a very stressful couple of days for me, because I had all my clients, and by this stage I had quite a lot of clients in Saudi Arabia. I had all these Saudi Arabian clients messaging me simultaneously saying, we have no school, we have no education for our children, can you tutor my child full time? And I'm thinking, whoa, okay,
And that's a lot of work.
that's a lot of
Lot of
work.
work.
What should I do? What am I going to do? So I'm sitting there, what am I going to do? And my brain is quite good in a crisis. So I came up with a summer school. This obviously was summer-ish. It felt like summer because it was the hottest year on record, wasn't it? And so I set up this summer school, which was again on Skype. I mean, if I'd known Zoom back then, it would have been far easier, but it was all done really quickly. I had about 20 children each day for about, I had to create quite a number of different classes. I had sort of English for 7 to 11-year-olds, English for 11 to 14-year-olds, maths. I'd got these different lessons running with all these children joining. I didn't know what to charge. I didn't know how to do the fees or the admin. It was chaos in terms of the background, but I did manage to create something that worked. And the public facing side of it was actually quite good. And then I got more children joining because the people who had their children in the summer school, they recommended it to their friends. So I've got this huge amount of children, and they were all really well behaved. There were never any issues with the children.
Oh, wow, that's great.
Oh, they were lovely. I have very fond memories of all the children. I loved it. It was what was happening outside of the lessons that was a problem.
Oh.
So it was, I started to crash and burn, to put it bluntly.
Right.
Admin was, I say a lot, that sounds a really simplistic way of putting it. The admin was almost like a tsunami. It was drowning me. And I've never been particularly adept at dealing with lots of information coming at me at once. And I started to become very overwhelmed, to the point where I was fine on the lessons, but I was working incredibly long days. We're talking 12-hour days, and it was sometimes 7 days a week. Spending all my free time walking to clear my head, and thoroughly enjoying the teaching side of it, finding everything else underneath very difficult, especially the fees, and especially keeping track of payments and all of that. So I got worse and worse, to put it bluntly, and not being able to go out and meet people, being an extrovert, was really tough.
Yeah,
And I just
got overwhelmed.
Yeah, the worst thing was I was realizing everybody else was coping with it far better than I was. And I'm quite perceptive, and I was thinking, other people are coping with this and I'm not. What's wrong with me? What's going on? I started to talk to people online, mainly people who are in the medical profession, thinking they can tell me I've got stress or anxiety and I can probably get something for it. And they all start saying the same thing. They all start saying, oh, you've clearly got ADHD and it's not diagnosed. So I'm like, surely it's just a reaction to COVID. Like, isn't everybody stressed out? Isn't everybody overwhelmed?
Which you can understand at that point, because a lot of people, like, we're now seeing the impact of COVID years later with all the research and everything. So everyone coped in different ways, but it also, like you, started to highlight things that you never knew before.
Yeah. It was crazy. And I started to talk to people, and they're like, well, we've always known you've had it. I'm like, well, why didn't you say?
Oh,
like,
wow.
Explored their like, you were coping okay. You're fine as you are. I'm like, yeah, I know I might be fine as I am, but if I have something, I want to know. I don't just want to be sort of cruising through life with this this not knowing. So I had a bit of a heart-to-heart with my mum, and she's like, well, actually, yeah, we kind of sort of went to a few meetings when you were younger to see if you not with me. She went to some kind of talks and stuff about
how to understand for her, like.
And she'd always thought I'd got this, but they told her that because I slept well at night, which I've always slept well, when you do as much as me in a day, you sleep well. Your body just crashes at a certain time of sleep. That, oh no, I couldn't have it because people with ADHD don't sleep. Now, a lot of people with ADHD don't sleep very well, but there are also a proportion of people with ADHD who have normal sleeping patterns, and I'm one of the lucky ones.
Right.
So it all got pushed under the carpet, brushed away. My school reports, I was never naughty. I was always okay at focusing. I've never had that much of an issue with the inattention. With me, it's more the hyperactivity and the impulsivity.
Right.
I like a bouncy ball most of the time. And but the inattention really reared its ugly head in COVID, because I was struggling to focus unless I was teaching. So what I did was I thought, right, I'm not having this anymore. I need to know. So I booked an assessment, an online assessment with one of one of Europe's most experienced ADHD assessors.
Oh, wow.
Who'd
How did
got
you come across that?
I went through an organisation called Psychiatry UK, who were fantastic from the onset. They're used by the NHS to do diagnostic assessments. And I chose the person who'd got the most experience of adult ADHD. And I've got a really funny story, if you don't mind me telling you.
No, that's great.
It's funny. So it was on my grandma, my late grandma, bless her. She passed away in 2022. She was one of the most lovely human beings on earth. And I had it on her birthday on the 19th of July, this assessment. And I remember it was very early in the morning because I am a 5 a.m. person. And I think it was about 7 a.m. And I got up really early, thinking, today I'm going to find out what's going on. And this man turns up on the screen, and there's a picture behind him. I know he's based in Guernsey, and there's a picture behind him of these sailing boats. And I've always liked the ocean. I think most people in the UK like the ocean because we're kind of connected to the sea. And I looked at this picture and I'm thinking, look at those boats. When I was a child, I loved boats. And it has come through as an adult. I love anything to do with water. I absolutely love water. And the first thing I said to this man, I didn't even say hello. The first thing I said was, I love that picture behind you. I said, is it where you live? Thinking this is what everyone does. People always look at pictures. So let's get distracted with pictures. And I'm like, I really like that particular boat, blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking, right. And I hadn't really like clocked on to this. And then at the end of it, I remember thinking, he didn't really even need to interview me, did he? And the first thing I'm doing is noticing the picture behind him. I didn't even say hi to this guy. I'm like, sailing boats. Ooh. It's like, and it was just, yeah, he said at the end of it, because I'm just sitting there answering all these questions, thinking I'm doing so well at not being distracted. And he still thought I was distracted. He said gosh, what do you call it? The assessment, like the diagnostic paragraph, let's say. He said she went off on tangents. I don't even remember going off on tangents. I spent that whole time thinking, don't go off on tangents. And I still went off on tangents. I clearly have no control over tangents. But it was, yeah, it came back ADHD. And he said that I've probably got worse ADHD than I think, which was great. He said, you're covering up a lot of your symptoms, your rate, because some people try and get an ADHD diagnosis to get the medication. It's been done historically, and people will overrate their symptoms. I did the opposite, according to him. I underscored myself, and I'm actually far worse than I thought I was. So yeah, it turns out that I probably have more severe ADHD than I ever thought, because I've spent my life covering it up, which is called masking. Since I got diagnosed, I've taken off the mask and now tell everybody, because at the end of the day, if you book tuition with me, you have to know I've got ADHD. It's part of me, and it has never, ever put a customer off booking us. And I'm so proud of that.
That's great. People
are lovely. Human beings are lovely. They don't judge. And I'm really happy about that.
And how do you feel since, so let's just go back to the assessment. Was it a long assessment? Was it intense, if you don't mind me asking? Or was it just a series of questions?
It was about an hour. It was very structured, very professional. And before then, I'd done lots of backgrounds. There was lots of questionnaires that you had to fill in. But the man told me he can tell within the first few minutes, pretty much, if someone's got ADHD. He said there's a lot of, because I had a little chat with him at the end, there's a lot of kind of giveaways with people. Yeah. And if you have ADHD, it's very easy to spot other people with ADHD. All my friends have ADHD. My best friend, she diagnosed me first. She said, you know, you've got ADHD. She was one of the ones that pushed me for an assessment. And then once I've been diagnosed, I'm like, her name's Charlotte. She'll watch this. She won't mind me saying her name. I was like, Charlotte, I think you've got ADHD as well. And she's like, no, I haven't. I was like, really think you have? And she then ended up getting diagnosed as well. So, and she works in a similar kind of role, helping people. And my boyfriend, he's got ADHD. Pretty much everyone. My dad, raging ADHD, won't admit that he's got it, but that's where it's come from. We've got a very neurodivergent families on both sides, so it's a case of, yeah, it was inevitable that I would be neurodivergent.
And what have you done since that diagnosis? Is it more of an acceptance, or have you put steps? So you've obviously, when you get new parents come to you, you state it's just so that they're aware and to help children. But is there anything else in your life where you've made maybe changes based on this diagnosis, or haven't made changes and just being your true self?
I would say it's the organisation. I've learned to become organised, because, as I always say to people, ADHD is an obstacle. It is an obstacle. It is not always a superpower. It can be, but it can also be a massive obstacle. It doesn't mean it's impossible to do, though. And organisation's hard. I've put in lots of plans to make things easier. I have lots of checklists on my phone. I have reminder apps. I have mindfulness apps. So the organisation, I changed the way that we did fees after lockdown. I changed the way I've made everything easier. I use software that makes things easier. Artificial intelligence makes life a lot easier when you have ADHD. So I would say that the main thing I changed, I don't mask who I am. I tell customers that I am me. I am loud. I am incredibly spontaneous. I can't mask that part of my personality, because if I did, your lessons won't be very good, because I won't be happy. So we tell customers from the onset, this style of tuition doesn't suit all children. It suits children who enjoy spontaneity, games, surprises, lots of laughter, lots of joy. There are children who need a slightly more calm, quieter form of tuition. And I can recommend tutors who can provide that. So I'm honest with people. We will always meet a child. We will always do an induction with a child to see if they're the right fit. But we're professional. We only take on students who we feel we can help. And in terms of how it's affected my life, I went through all the stages: denial, acceptance, then I denied it again, and I thought maybe I'm just a bit crazy. But actually, I kind of fit the ADHD definition quite well, and people who meet me usually know within the first few minutes. But yeah, I'm determined not to mask it, because the fact is, this is who I am. And the reason why Bedford Tutor has become a full-time business is because of, I think a lot of it is because of this type of brain I've got. It makes it so easy to come up with ideas. That is the best thing I would say. I never ever wake up and think, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do with the children today. Every day it's so many ideas. I have to kind of sort them all out, kind of which one should we go with. But I would say coming up with ideas, it's so easy. And that's what ADHD gives you, constant thoughts.
For those that think they might be on the path to an ADHD diagnosis, what advice would you give them?
Do it. Get diagnosed. Don't see it. I think I had to know. It wasn't a case of, I never wanted medication. And even though I don't want medication might be right for somebody else. It's a case of you do what's right for you. Everybody's different. The reason I don't want medication is because I'm in a job where the ADHD is controlled through the way that I work. I can structure my own hours. I've got a lot more flexibility. If I was in a traditional job, I think I might need medication, because my brain does go off on tangents constantly. I would say ADHD is not a stigma. It's not a label that's going to hold you back. People understand it nowadays a lot more. It's in the news a lot more. It's something that, for me, it was the knowing, because it's far better to know that you've got ADHD than to think you're crazy, which I thought I was crazy. And thinking that you're crazy does not work, does not help you in any way, shape, or form. I know how my brain works. I now know that lower levels of dopamine are pretty much, I don't know if it's been quite proven as such, but they're pretty sure that's what the main problem is with ADHD. Low dopamine. If I know I've got low dopamine, I then research how to raise dopamine. And I know that you do that through exercise. So I now do at least an hour and a quarter of very heavy exercise each morning. And that gets my dopamine up to such a high level that I can usually go the rest of the day quite focused. I've got my own coping mechanisms. Always find out though, because ADHD is a very difficult thing to live with if you don't know what it is. You will blame yourself a lot more. I don't blame myself for my mistakes anymore. And I don't put them down to ADHD. I put them down to being human, because at the end of the day, I might have ADHD, but I am still a human being. And I have the same wants, desires, and wishes as everybody else. It's just mine are often that little bit more rainbow, a little bit more sparkly and bouncy. And that's just who I am.
So moving forward then, obviously lockdown happened, a lot happened personally, a lot happened with your business. So we're obviously a few years on now, things have settled down. How have they settled down in terms for your business?
I would say the business now has a focus. We have streamlined the business a lot more recently. We've set up, I've come up with my own dyslexia program, spelling program for dyslexic children. That is something that has been successful. I'm really proud of how successful it's been. I wasn't sure when I set it up what it would be like, how the children would enjoy it. It's very hands-on, very fun, game-based, and it's structured, which is something new for me. I'm not the most structured human on earth. And it's something that we've realized that we work really well with dyslexic children over the last 12 years. We've got specialist ADHD tuition with lots of movement, lots of games, lots of fun. We've also realized that with the maths, rather than teaching the whole maths curriculum, we teach the maths curriculum up to the end of year 7, with the main focus on subjects where mastery is important, such as addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. And we also do specialist workshops on fractions and all of those kind of things that children often find really tough. We still, even though I did do group sessions in lockdown, my heart is in one-to-one. And I love working one-to-one, because the kind of tuition we do, it calls for one-to-one. A lot of children who are doing like the spelling program, they're all at different levels, and doing a group session wouldn't work for them. So they want that one-to-one support. They want one person who they can come and talk to. A lot of the children like to talk to us about things that make them anxious. They like to talk to us about things at school that are going on that maybe they haven't shared with a parent, but they want to share with us. And then we can comfortably talk to a parent and have a phone call if needed, and talk about things that they feel comfortable talking about in our environment, which is great, because it's often a place for them to talk about something that they wouldn't be comfortable talking about at school. So we've got a great relationship with all the parents. We have regular phone calls, regular voice notes. We like to make sure that it's part of a family, that the tuition is like a family, and everyone, it's a business, and obviously people have to spend money to come here, but we want to give them more than we ever have done. So we've we're in September, we've got a Google Classrooms thing that we're going to be offering, where children have options to do challenges to win prizes and things like that. We're going to bring in a different form of spelling program for children who have very high vocabularies but poor spelling skills, to help them to use those big words that make them smile and be able to spell them with more confidence. So we're developing all the time to help the children. The main aim is to help children. And if we can do that, we've succeeded. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. I love it. I absolutely love the job. It's not a job. It's just doing your hobby. That's all it is for me. It's doing my hobby every day.
I can tell from just talking to you how passionate you are about it.
I love it. I love it.
There was somebody that was considering tuition.
Yes.
As a business, haven't been a teacher or anything like that. If you could go back in time and give advice to your younger self, but also to someone starting out, what would you say to them about starting up a tuition business?
I would say I wouldn't change the way that I did it. I would say the first thing you need to do is figure out, I think I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I kind of dabbled in A-level history, A-level psychology, and all of it was relatively successful. I think if you put enough effort into something, you can make it successful. And that's what I wanted to do. I did. I realised a bit later than I wish I had done that actually it's the dyslexia and the ADHD tuition to do the real specialism in. But I think that came about because it evolved, and I wouldn't have known that at the beginning. So I think what you've got to be aware of, have an overall aim of what you want to teach. So if you specialise in English or maths or whatever, but realise that it's only experience that will let you evolve as a tutor, and that you might not go into it knowing exactly what subject you want to teach. You're only really going to discover what type of tutor you are by tutoring. And I think it's those things. I could go away and I could do a teaching qualification, and one day I might, but the fact is, I have learned, you learn so much through doing. I'm a kinesthetic learner. I learn through doing. And the only way that I will become a really good tutor is to tutor. And I think that's why I enjoy the job so much, because every time I learn something new is when I'm teaching. In terms of the actual job, I don't learn it through reading books. I learn ways of applying things, new information through reading. But in terms of the really core things, you get that through actually teaching and through learning on the job. So I would say, do it, have a go at it. If you don't like it, you don't have to continue. If you do like it, there's an awful lot of people there that will benefit from what you can do.
Definitely. Because there's many TAs that I've worked with over the years, and they would make outstanding teachers, but they just don't want the workload, the pressure, that there's a whole host of things now associated with teaching. And I can understand why. Well, to finish off then, let me know what you are currently offering and where people can find you.
Okay, thank you. So we can be found on www.bedfordtutor.co.uk, and also on Bedford Tutor on Facebook and Bedford Tutor on Instagram. Currently, I am taking on students for Super Summer Learning, which are really fun-filled summer holiday sessions, focusing on maths and English, and there will be some really awesome themes. So they are both visiting, obviously in the Bedford area, and online. So that can appeal to children from around the world. So I do international tuition. So it will be a lot of fun this summer. I've already got quite a lot of clients. September-wise, we're also taking on some students for September. We are changing things a little bit in September because my mum is semi-retiring, because she is obviously at the age where she wants to go a little bit more gently, but she's still going to be involved in the tuition each afternoon, but we are changing things a little bit in September. So we are still taking on clients, but at the moment it might have to be more on a sort of ad hoc basis or for the waiting list. But for the super summer holiday tuition, I'm taking on clients from now in order to do that.
Oh, well, thank you so much for chatting to me and getting in touch. I've learned so much from you, and I will obviously share all your details. And thank you again for chatting to me. I've really, really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much.
Oh, if you'd like today's video, please make sure to give it a thumbs up and to subscribe to see who else I'm chatting to. Thanks so much for watching.